Welcome back to the Chasing Tone podcast. I, of course, am Brian Wampler with Blake Weiland today. And so I'm going to be really upfront and honest with you guys. Today, I've had quite a bit of coffee. And my mind is going 1,000 miles a minute. So we go through about 15,000 different topics in about 40 minutes or so. So hopefully it's not too all over the place for you guys. Hopefully you enjoy it. Hopefully you get some entertainment out of it and maybe a little bit of information as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, but let's jump right into it.
Brian.
You should change your name to Tone Mob. Just from Blake Weiland to just Tone and last name Mob.
Could I be like Anthony Mobberson? And then people could call me Tone Mob? Is that good?
That's perfect. You should do that.
I'm Anthony Mobberson, guys.
Anthony Mobberson.
Mm-hmm. But people call
me... Or the Tone Mob, we call him.
People call me Tone Mob.
People call me Tone Mob for short. Some people call me The Mob, but, the FBI frowns on that a little bit.
It's a weird deal. They came to my door the other day. I told them I didn't know what that was.
Like, no, this is about guitar tone. Not about anything else.
They said, we hear you've been talking a lot about fuzz. What do you mean by that exactly?
What do you have against the police?
Yeah.
No. The effect, fuzz.
It's a weird situation. My lawyers are handling it. But for now, I have a restraining order against... I don't know where I'm going with this. But here we are.
Chickens and goats. All right, here we are. So I have... actually, you have a very good topic. And if you've been on Facebook in the middle of May 2018, you've probably seen this on your Facebook, but it's a great topic. And that is a list of your, they say 10 all-time favorite albums, ones which really made an impact and are still on your rotation list, even if only now and then.
Yeah, I don't know how much of a podcast topic per se that is going to be, but I just thought it was like... Facebook. We talked a lot of trash about Facebook last time. I don't know if people remember that, but
and it just so happened like the day after that happened, we with our Wampler Tone group went through quite a bit of drama ourselves. Now I won't go into the details of it, but it was very ironic that I talked about how pointless it is arguing on Facebook, and yet that's exactly what happened. So,
yeah, it's unfortunate. I had some stuff like that happen recently too, but it's since been fixed and everything's better, but still.
Right. Still, very ironic.
But so what I was getting at with that is like, this is actually like an enjoyable... This is what Facebook should be used for. Like, this is like an enjoyable thing. I'm finding out about these not new, but, all these people who I associate with online once in a while, or, all the time, really. Finding out like, I've never heard of that band, and I don't know about all this stuff, so it was really interesting to see the wide range of different influences, and then also a lot of the similarities between myself and like a lot of the guys that would probably be in my demographic. Like I was like, wow, we seem to all really like the band Thrice a lot, which is great because they're my favorite band. But it was just interesting to see them repeatedly pop up in the feed. I don't know. I just thought it was like I said, we talked a lot of trash about the platform last time, but this was like a really positive thing and it made me kind of feel good.
There's a few days for me that my feed was pretty decent, and we'll get to the topic in a second, but I don't know what happened, but since then it's been pretty much crap. So, if I'm going through my feed, there is, let's see, we have one about the cheesiest sandwich. We have one that's supposed to be a comedy video from, I don't know, some old movie, which I don't know. Another one where there's a dog jumping all over a goat.
Hey, that seems right up your alley.
Yeah. Let's see. Another one is too graphic to show me. A man tries to rob mom and children at gunpoint, but she shoots first. No idea what makes Facebook think that that's something I want to see, but that's a different story. Mm-hmm. The other one is arguable. barbecue bacon wrapped cheese stuffed hot dogs. Now,
See,
okay,
come on.
I get that. I get that. You had me at bacon.
Hey, that sounds like you got one really not good thing, but you got two cheese related things in your feed. How bad can your feed really be?
But then the next one's fudge swirled Oreo bottom cheesecake cupcakes. Now keep in mind, I don't eat sweets. I don't like them. They taste like drinking corn syrup to me. I don't like sweets, and so for Facebook, and I'm really not a big fan of food. I eat like once a day, really. Maybe 1.5 times. Usually a small meal around noon, and then a bigger meal in the evening.
I don't even know how we can be friends.
That's just me. I honestly feel better. Like inside, I feel physically better whenever I don't eat a bunch. I think that's different from person to person.
I have a hole inside that I try to fill with barbecue.
Yeah, I don't have that.
I love food. Everyone knows this by now. It's such a great thing. I don't know.
See, I'm a bit of the opposite. To me, food is a pain in the butt because even though it's mildly enjoyable to eat, I suppose there's a lot of other things I'd rather do with my time besides stuff some food in my. The hole below my nose.
I feel like I need to feed you. I feel like maybe there's just a disconnect. I mean, if all I had to eat was a Chili's, I might feel the same way. Well,
I mean, yeah, there is that. I'm not one who enjoys food like that. Like to me, food is like putting gas in your car. Like there's most of the time I will eat while walking around and doing something else. I don't really sit down for a meal. I just grab some food and I'm doing various other things. And it's just like I feel like crap. I probably need to eat something. And so I eat something and then I'm good to go for a while.
You're walking around when you got a chimichanga in your mouth like a cigar?
Pretty much. Yep. Taco in one hand, chimichanga in the other. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Probably on the phone with me complaining about something.
Probably so. So anyways, back to the topic about our 10 favorite albums. And here's why I think that this might actually be a good podcast.
Okay.
Because the explanation of why those are top 10 favorite albums. So, and I'll give an example. Okay. So most people who know me well probably know that I'm a gigantic Van Halen fan, specifically the first 3 or 4 albums.
Mm-hmm.
Really pretty much before 1984. 1984 being arguable on a few different songs. Women and Children First was great. Fair Warning I thought was pretty decent. 1 and 2 was fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Like when I think of licks, even though I play nothing like Eddie, I think of like quirky phrasing like Eddie would do. It comes out different once it goes to my fingers.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I've always kind of been that way. I've always I'm not changing the subject, but it sounds like I am. I've always when I sat down to learn a lick, I don't generally learn it note for note. I'll listen to it and I'll like transcribe it to what feels natural to me, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. It does.
You know what I mean? So I mean, I never was one of those type for the most part until I got to Brent Mason. Then that was where I was slowing things down at 15% speed and thinking, where's his vibrato at? How fast is the vibrato? How's he bending that note? Like all these little things. But back in my mullet days, listen to George Lynch and that sort of thing. I would take something and I would just do it my own way.
Mm-hmm.
And Van Halen was the sort of thing. I loved the tone, loved the phrasing. Brings me back to a lot of memories, like with my brother growing up. One of my brothers named Jim. He introduced me to that whole era of stadium rock or whatever it's called nowadays. Back then, it was just called the music we're going to listen to.
Right.
And you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it really had a huge impact on me. Like listening to all that Van Halen stuff and hearing it just absolutely cranked up, and my parents yelling at us to turn it down, us locking the door and refusing to. That had a gigantic impact on me, not only as a player, but even as a guy that like designs pedals. Because when I think of tone, those are things that I reference back. And that's just one small area when I was 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that we probably, I mean, unless we want to go on for hours and hours, won't have time to go through 10, but I know what you mean. Like, because there are certain albums that I have, and through thinking through this process, and granted, these things change all the time. You know, so what it is in May 2018 may not be what it is in July. So,
right.
You know, but it was interesting to actually like think through the, like, which ones, like, say, it's different to have like a list of top 10 favorite albums, right? Like, oh, this is one of my top 10 favorite albums. The caveat of it still needs to be somewhat in your current rotation. Like and to me, I've listened to it at least in the last year, 1 or 2 times. You know, that's kind of where I put it. Because there are some albums that I think of and I think, oh, that's one of my favorite albums ever. And I'm like, I really haven't listened to that in quite a while. So I thought it was nice that there was kind of that, leave it up to you, whatever you consider to be your current rotation and whatever had a big impact, you know?
I guess it depends how you define rotation. I mean, like, you know, another one of mine would be like Nirvana, Nevermind. Mm-hmm. And it's not that I listen to, it's not like every week I listen to Nirvana. It's just that it's one of those albums that whenever it does come on, it takes me back to a point in time that really had a lot of shape on me. Mm-hmm. And so it's enjoyable for me to go back and listen to that occasionally. And I don't, you know, I guess it depends how you define occasionally. As far as rotation I listen to on a daily basis, I mean, that's all over the place. There's no 10 bands I listen to every day. It's just not.
No. I mean, but it is interesting to note, though, that I think this was one of our early, when I started doing this podcast with you, like one of our early topics was how music from a certain point in our adolescence was more impactful than most other times in your life. And right. I mean, that's one thing I've noticed with this little top 10 project thing is like, that's it's confirming it to be true. And then I know that article went around that people shared with us after that episode. It's like scientifically based that that stuff from your, you know, childhood to late teens it just sticks with you for some reason. And I've seen that across the board with this little Facebook viral thing.
Right. Well, that's true. But the thing, even with that study, the thing that doesn't take into account is, well, you know, I could say like Brad Paisley. I didn't really get into Brad Paisley until my my early to mid 20s. You know, which is well after my high school years. But it was a paradigm shift. Like I heard his song "Me Neither," and I thought, "Holy cow! I've never heard Brent Mason play those licks before." And it's no slight against Brad. It's because at the time Brent was playing guitar on everything in Nashville, and I just assumed it was Brent. And come to find out, it was this new guy, Brad Paisley, and that was his first album. And from then I'm like, wow, that's very unique guitar riffs. Very like it's he strings things together in such a way that you wouldn't ordinarily do, but he makes it work.
Well, yeah, and it's not. It's
like
definitely
hitting
not
all the wrong notes at the right time. I like to put it that way.
I mean, it's not exclusive to your teenage years, like, and I don't think it should be. I think as musicians, it's important to kind of listen to new things and push your own boundaries a little bit. And I'm definitely guilty of being a little bit conservative in that regard. But I think things like what we just did or what we just seen is good for us to go and like explore, see if something's for you or if it's not for you. You know, what's the worst that's going to happen?
Yep.
You know, and I think it can push us as musicians, you know, into other things. I didn't get into one of the bands I listen to on a regular basis that actually did make it into this rotation for me was
Teletubbies.
Yeah, Teletubbies. That's is that a band?
Sure, it is. They play music. They're a band.
Okay, I'm going to pretend that didn't happen.
I'm sorry. I couldn't resist.
I understand. It's actually a band I've talked about on here before, and the reason I bought my son Beta lead is Red Fang. I'm just like, I never really listened to...
You bought your son a Beta lead?
What?
You just said I bought my son a beta lead.
No, I bought a Sun beta lead.
Sorry, that was a bad joke.
I know. You're trying to insert jokes into my brilliant point that I'm trying to make here.
I'm sorry. I'm good at interrupting.
And now I don't know what I was going to say.
You had your Sun beta lead that led to the ultimate change in your viewpoint as a musician.
Not
really.
Real
Ultimate career change that now led you to serving barbecue on the weekends and being some form of exotic dancer in the weekdays.
And watching Teletubbies. I don't know what's going on right now. Where am I? I'm scared. I'm terrified by the scenario you just constructed in your own mind.
Reason 103 of why we shouldn't let Brian have too much coffee at one time.
How much coffee have you had today, Brian?
Well, I drank a pot.
What?
Normally it's normally it's about 2 cups, but I made. So you know when you're making coffee and like some days you just freaking get it right. Like the mixture is just dead on accurate, awesome, right?
Yeah.
Today was one of those days. And I'm like, I am not going to waste this pot of coffee. I will consume this entire thing because today is the best cup of coffee I've had for a long time.
You know what I do? And I don't know if this is weird or not. I don't know what this has to do with anything, but I like know how much coffee I want to drink, and I just make that much. Like I'm like I put it up to the 4 or whatever it is, and I pour it in the thing, and I have a couple scoops. My wife actually figured this out. She's like, you drink approximately, 1 large mug of coffee, and that is approximately to this line, and you seem to like it when you have this many scoops in it.
See, to me, there is a science to it. Like there is exactly this much water and exactly this much coffee. And if there's a slight deviation, maybe the coffee's a little fluffier that day, or maybe it's a little more compacted or whatever. Sometimes it throws that ratio off because it's hard to get exactly the exact amount of water.
It can be challenging. Yes,
it could be argued that my OCD gets in the way as well. That could be argued.
I would never suggest that about you ever.
I'm a little fanatical when it comes to certain things, and making coffee is one of those.
And apparently drinking
so much though that my good friend James B. O'Rear, I think I've mentioned him on the podcast before. Mm-hmm. He's the coffee guy on YouTube. Sort of well-known in that niche for a guy that goes out and talks about different kinds of coffee beans and that sort of thing. So he's been sending me just all different kinds of examples of my favorite bean, which is Guatemalan, specifically from the Antigua, Guatemala area, coffee. There's four volcanoes in that area that make some of the best beans. Anyways, depending how it's roasted. So he sends me like these different beans, these different roasts of them, so I can find the perfect one. And I've narrowed it down to like 2 or 3, and so I just keep reordering them, and couldn't be happier. The McDonald's days are long gone.
And apparently, so is sleep, because you're going to be drinking highly caffeinated beverages all day, every day, for the rest of time.
Well, that's true. But that's what they make good porters and good stouts for in the evening.
That sounds nice.
See, that brings the coffee buzz down just a little bit, makes you nice and even for the evening.
You know one thing I really like really that I kind of forget?
Sleep?
Well, I do love sleep. I really like sleeping. It's a wonderful thing. But I really like tremolo. You know?
Tremolo as in the tremolo arm on your guitar, or tremolo as in the tremolo pedal?
The tremolo pedal.
Oh, so I see. So I didn't realize we were segueing away from our favorite albums, but that's fine.
I just was looking at a tremolo. You brought up the Teletubbies and the favorite album. I couldn't even process anything anymore.
So you don't have any favorite albums? You have no favorite albums?
I do, but I thought you wanted to talk about coffee, and I didn't want to.
No, that's just a slight segue of me going off in some wild direction to the right for a minute. I circled around and came back, dude.
Oh, I can't.
Like
you're on a whole nother level. I can't even keep up. I should have had more coffee.
It's funny. My wife actually brought this to my attention today. She's like, you need to slow down because not everyone is on a bunch of caffeine today.
I had a cup a couple hours ago. So no, I'm pretty even. On an even keel. I can't keep up.
Yeah, not I. I am on fire today. Oh yes. On fire.
Wow. I don't know if I've ever been that fired up.
Woo!
Oh.
Let's do this.
Okay, Brian. What was I going to say? I don't remember. Favorite albums?
Favorite albums.
A favorite album.
All right. Let's do this.
One, I can give you the one that was probably like it changed everything for me. And I posted this one on the old face pages. And I know you probably haven't listened to it, which makes it a little bit weird because I've definitely listened to Van Halen, so I knew what you were talking about. But the big one for me that it really changed everything was Thrice. They did a album in which they really changed stylistically a lot, and it changed how I looked at things, and it's called Visu.
Mm-hmm.
And they
I'm
were
familiar with it, but I never listened to it that much.
You should.
I'm familiar with it.
It's good for you.
I've listened to some Thrice, and it's one of those things like I totally respect it. Like I dig what they do. It's just not. It's not something that hit that same nerve. It's kind of like, and don't get me wrong. So I don't mean this in any disrespectful way at all, because I actually know Mark Tremonti, and he's a super sweet guy, and like he's like one of those guitar heroes that is as cool as you hope he's going to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I love the band, but Altered Bridge is kind of that way. I dig some of their stuff, but it did not have the impact the same as like Master of Puppets or even Garage Days Revisited from Metallica, or Green Day Dookie or Alice in Chains Dirt. I mean, like all that stuff, it hit me so hard in the chest that it totally changed my paradigm of life.
Oh, you want to talk about? I don't think this album gets enough love, probably just because of like the shift that Green Day made. But Dookie is such a good album. It's so good.
It's fantastic. The tones are great. I mean, the songs are simple, but they're still good.
They're great songs. They're so catchy without being cheesy. I love that album so much.
I think the first two albums are my favorite. I'm not sorry. It's not the very first two, because the first one I wasn't a big fan of. Dookie, and the second one, which the name escapes me.
I get them mixed up in which order they came out, so I don't know.
Yeah, there was one album, and then there was another one, which was Dookie, and then there was the other one. So let's Green
Shenanigans?
No.
Did Nimrod come out after Dookie?
It was Nimrod.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it was Nimrod. Or was it Insomniac? No, I'm wrong. It was Insomniac.
That is good,
so
too.
Dookie and Insomniac, my two favorite Green Day albums, and two albums that made me change my gear, change the style I was playing, change the way I was writing songs with the band I was in at the time. Probably lost a girlfriend or two over my obsession with guitar gear. Got divorced, by the way, during that point in time. Not to Amanda. This was 2 wives ago. Yeah, I've had some practice being married before.
Oh. Practice.
So, yeah. I like to call those first two just trial runs. That's terrible.
Wow, that's rough, man. That is rough.
I don't recommend. I don't recommend. I tell my kids, I'm like, you don't want to get married when you're 18, because you're more than likely you're going to change a lot of things are going to change. Yeah. So, anyways, this is not the How to Stay Married podcast.
I mean, well, yeah, never mind.
No, you're doing good. You got your head on your shoulders. It took me a lot of years to get my head out of my butt, man.
It happens. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people think not that I don't even know what's going on with this episode right now, but
let's just go with it. It's organic and growing. Just go with it.
I was 19 and it worked out great, but I don't know that it would for everyone. Let's just put it that way.
You have a very mature personality, though, especially for your age.
Yeah, my wife will dispute that, but okay.
And I was because you're late 20s ish or so, right?
Mm-hmm.
I forget. Yeah, when I was that age, I was a complete idiot. I was pretty much an idiot. Yeah, fairly stupid.
Would you say that you were a Nimrod? Oh,
I was quite the Nimrod. I was starting to get my head on my shoulders. That's for sure. I had, two small kids, but it still was pretty green in the brain. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of a closed mind.
Did that have to do with Green Day?
No, that didn't have to do with Green Day.
I'm trying to make bad jokes on you now, and it's not working.
Oh wait, I failed to realize that was a joke. I'm sorry about that.
Never mind. I'm going to put you on a severe coffee restriction. You're screwing up our flow.
I'm flowing just fine. It's just all over the place. This would be the rambling episode.
It would be. I don't even know where to go with that. But
Garage Days Revisited. You got little Brian in a little barn that I built a half pipe in because I was a skater at the time. So I found some scraps of wood here and there, maybe possibly stole a few sheets of plywood from some places, and made a skateboard ramp over my winter break in, 9th grade, 8th grade, something like that. And ended up listening to Garage Days Revisited revisited more correctly, over and over and over and over and over and over whilst I was skating on this half pipe in this garage. Funny little note, whenever you tie the half pipe to the walls of a small garage, and those walls are not really anchored into the ground very well, the walls actually move out and the roof starts to come down and crash on you.
That is a side note. Very good information for all the aspiring skateboarders in the audience.
And completely relevant to the Chasing Tone Mob podcast.
Yeah, no kidding. Guitars? Do we talk about guitars at all? Or other than Van Halen's phrasing and then how to not get married? I don't even know. What is this? What is this even?
This is how we roll, man. This is just what we do. It's been me and you for several years now.
It has.
You know what I mean? This is not a new thing. This is kind of we tend to talk about some things, and we, like squirrels on crack, we go off in all kinds of different directions. Generally from me, prompting that.
I mean, I'm good at it too. Unless we
try to rein me back in.
I try. Well, I don't try that hard, but I try a little bit. Sometimes it's better to just let somebody just wander off, and maybe eventually they'll return. Hopefully.
Right. So I'll help you. I know that you are dying to talk about this, and it is about Matin guitars.
Oh, yeah. Well, sort of. I actually don't know the right way to pronounce it. I know very little about it.
Maton.
Yeah.
Maton?
I think it's Maton. I don't know. But I will say Maton for now because that's how I've been saying it in my head. I don't know if that's right. But they're a Australian guitar company that have been around for a long time. Since, I think, if I remember right, I think it was from like 1946. And
really?
Yeah. And they're really well known and a decent sized company down there. And if you look at some of their, even their modern designs are cool too, but some of their vintage guitars are just super funky and cool looking and so unique compared to what we're seeing. And I'm like, okay, this company's been around for a while. I think on the website they said they had like 40 plus employees. It's not
a big company. That's a big company for guitars, man.
Exactly.
That's not a small guy in a garage building guitars.
No, that's what I was getting at is they have really cool looking stuff. They obviously are a decent size operation for the guitar industry, but yet they're pretty much universally unknown up in the States, which I find very strange, being as the United States is like by far the biggest guitar market. I'm just amazed at how under the radar they've flown. I think their big claim to fame is that Tommy Emmanuel plays their stuff. And that's probably like the biggest exposure that Americans have had to it. But I follow a guy on Instagram. The handle is Tony Guitar Nerd. And he is always posting up some vintage Matons. And I'm just like, man, I would love to see one in person because they look so cool. But I've never ever seen one up here. I've just seen them online. And I think they got some unique vibes. I just was thinking, like, are there other companies that kind of fit that same description where they're like really big and popular elsewhere in the country, but most American guitar players have never heard of them before?
Yeah, I've never heard of them myself. I did check out their site though. The site looks great. Guitars look really great. Hopefully I can try one out sometime.
Yeah.
Hopefully I see one on this side of the pond, so to speak.
I think they're not cheap. I think they're a pretty high end instrument. I haven't done that much research on them. I just been following that guy on Instagram for a while and been like, every time he posts, I'm like, this looks so cool. What is it? Oh, it's a Maton. Interesting. So maybe if our Australian listeners can kind of clue us in a little bit more, that'd be much appreciated for sure.
Yeah, I'd love to know more about them. I wonder if I didn't see. Do they make a Telecaster style guitar?
Not like they make Telecaster-ish guitars, but it's like the ones I've seen, they're like kind of their own spin on it, like not just a Tele shape with somebody else's logo on it. Like they actually change it a little bit.
Gotcha. They make it their own then.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know.
Cool.
I don't even know.
That's cool. I'm still into that.
I think you dig some of it. Some of it's real funky. And some of it's like just very tastefully different. I dig it. But yeah, I mean those Australians, they got all kinds of stuff going on there that we don't know about. One thing that I've been really into lately, not from a playing perspective because I've never actually played one, but well, actually, you've played a guitar like this before, but I've been really into Strandberg style guitars and
I had Strandberg for a while. Yeah. One of the prototypes. Yeah.
And like, I blame Jason. It's Jason Fuzzmonger in the many guitar Facebook groups, and he's a moderator in Tone Mob. He's a Strandberg fan, and I used to think that looks weird and I don't like it, and now I'm like, I kind of want one of those. And then the Ormsby guitars from Australia, I'm trying to make this connection make sense, how my brain is wired, has got some headless fan fret stuff going on too that I'm like, those look really cool now all of a sudden. Why? What is going on with my head to where I've just seen it enough to where I think they actually look cool now, where I used to think they were weird.
No, I mean, I had one and played it for a bit, and it was a great guitar, don't get me wrong. I think the thing is that it didn't fit my style. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like what? Because like as everybody knows, most of the time I'm playing a Telecaster, with the other part of the time generally being more of a Les Paul, and that's definitely not a Les Paul, definitely not a Telecaster. It's its own thing.
Oh, totally.
And it sounds great. Sounded great. It didn't hit home with me as probably more of a traditional. You might call me a blues dad, you know what I mean, or a, whatever you call it,
I call you a chicken plucker.
I'm the guy in the corner wanting to talk about Leonard Skinner drifts. Yeah, there you go.
You're picking the chickens.
It's not picking the chickens, and it's hard to put a G bender on those. Yeah.
Yep. And I play mostly traditional style of guitars too. Mine are almost. I got one 7-string. And one baritone. Other than that, everything's a standard 6-string, nothing crazy going on with it. A lot of Les Pauls, mostly. But for some reason, those weird old fan fret things are starting to appeal to me. And I don't know why. I'm not a shredder. I can't play like that. But I feel like these are smart guys, speaking of, Strandberg and Ormsby. Like, these are smart guys with well-designed guitars that most people who play them end up loving them, it seems like. Like very few people will get them and be like, this thing is no good. Most people are like, these are great instruments. And I can understand how they would turn off a traditionalist. They definitely rubbed me the wrong way aesthetically for a while, but now I'm starting to come around them. I'm getting a little bit of an itch. I guess I would say.
Right. No, I get it. I totally get it. I just the whole fan fretting. I know Frank Falbo at one time, I believe, might have been on this podcast, was discussing how that just makes more sense, and from more of a mathematical perspective, and maybe an ergonomic perspective. And it definitely did feel unique. It was weird for me to get used to, especially with doing like some of the bends and stuff that I do. Mm-hmm. It was a little hard for me to get used to. I could if I did that over time, but I don't. At the end of the day, I'm still going to revert back to a Telecaster because I'm just that guy, you know.
Mm-hmm. I get it. I mean, I've only played one. I wish I could remember who made it. I played it at the One Day Guitar Show, actually, which I think is happening right now as we record it. I wish I would have talked about this sooner. Oh well, sorry, Co. He's probably having a good time down at his event right now, and he doesn't care. But yeah, I've played it before, is the point, and I was surprised it's not as weird as I thought it would be. Like, I thought this was going to be impossible to make a chord on. How do you do it with the frets turned? And it's like, no, it actually feels just fine. Like, you know, some of them are sharper. They don't all follow the same angle, but yeah, they feel really unique. I like them. I don't know. I'm starting to think of like I like, you know, getting guitars, and I like you know, finding new ones, but I kind of when I'm looking for a guitar now, I'm kind of like, do I have one that does that sound, or I can get that sound out of? Yes or no? Or do I have one that feels or plays that way, or whatever? I don't just get them to get them anymore. I kind of look at them and go, well, I kind of got that covered with this other one, so I don't need it, which is a little bit weird deviation from how I was probably even when we started doing this podcast, which was, it has strings on it, I need it. Like, I'm kind of changing my attitude on guitars specifically these days.
I wish I was that way. I think I'm staring at 7 Telecasters right now.
Well, you know,
that's not healthy.
It's fine. You probably got, you know, an Esquire style one, and you probably got like a couple traditional ones, maybe a custom thrown in there. You got a thin line. There's lots of variations on the Tele, man. Yeah. Or they're all just straight traditional Telecasters.
No. I mean, there's a couple custom Whitfields, which I love, as you know. A Valley Arts Brent Mason model, which they don't make anymore, but it's heavy as a mug, but it sounds great. And then I have a regular Fender 52 reissue, Mexican. I don't even know what year, but it's the one that's got my G bender in it. And I have another Telecaster that's the scale of a Les Paul, which is really cool. That's another Whitfield.
That is cool.
What is the other one? Maybe there's not 7 of them. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm sorry. So several of those are the Whitfields. Just different pickup configurations, and like I said, the different scale with the humbuckers. That's kind of like a Les Paulicaster, I like to call it.
That's pretty cool. I don't think I've actually seen that one.
I brought it to name a few times. It's a dark wine red one, and it's beautiful. It's gorgeous. I love that thing. Doesn't sound like a traditional Telecaster at all. Actually, sounds a lot like a Les Paul. A lot. In fact, I like it better than my Les Paul. Even after all the swapping electronics, swapping pickups. Everything I've done to try to keep that stupid G-string to not go out of tune every time I do some sort of weird country bend. Because I do a lot of weird stuff like that. So
I don't know what it is about my Les Pauls. The way you are with Tellys, I'm kind of that way with Les Pauls. I got 3 of them. But I definitely notice that the G goes out of tune, like what people say. Like when I pick it up, I'm like, oh, this is all in tune except the G, and I tune it up, and usually I'm fine. I do gotta tweak it once in a while, but I don't have it fall out like what some people say they do. My Telecaster.
Do you do a lot of bends?
I do some bendings. Yeah, I do a little bendy. Probably not as much as you, but I definitely bend that string. Especially these days. And I've told you before, I have a really heavy right hand, so I would think it would just be falling out all the time. But it's not, I don't find them to be that much more unstable than my Telecaster. Really.
Wow. Fascinating. Yeah. I've had this problem with, several of them, and I really just attribute it to, people have told me it's various different reasons why it happens. But I also know that I do a lot of whittly bend, whittly bend, whittly bend. You know what I mean? And I think that's yeah. The whittly bends. The whittly bends kind of takes its toll, beats that Les Paul into submission, while the Whitfield just looks at me in the face and like, is that all you got? That's seriously what that do something different, dude. Throw it at me.
Yeah, come on, I can handle it.
Exactly. So I don't know what Charles did differently. I obviously it looks like a Telecaster, but shorter scale, different wood, set neck, all that sort of stuff. So I guess apparently this podcast is sponsored by Whitfield Guitars and Maton Guitars. I mean, not officially, but we've talked a lot about it.
And caffeine.
And caffeine.
Mm-hmm.
And James B. O'Rear's coffee YouTube channel. So where am I going with this to wrap this up?
I don't know. Where were you going with it?
I don't know. I've been all over the place. I don't really know how to wrap it up.
I haven't been able to keep up with you this whole episode. Like you were just way. You're just like it would like. You're like Usain Bolt, and then I'm just some big fat guy trying to chase you down. It's just not going to work. Like, come back, Brian. Come back. Come back.
And I'm like the little chipmunk running around you. Come on. What are you doing? Why are you doing that? Huh? Come on, let's go.
That's how I feel this episode. I wonder at times if how much different. Well, we've done it in person once, but we were both really tired. So I don't know how much that counts either.
Right.
I wonder
that
how
was
much if that would change.
And them in the hallway.
Yes. Staring into each other's eyes because we had the one mic.
Right. Wow, people looked at us like we were weird because we were 6 inches away from each other.
We weren't that close. You wouldn't have been able to stand that close. I had 8 nachos. But to wrap this up, I would say, what was I trying? Why did I even bring that up? Oh, I was going to say, I wonder if this thing would have a different, probably not, if it would have a different dynamic if we were always recording in the same room. I've always wondered that. Because most of my episodes are remote. But then again, I've actually only recorded a couple episodes in person. Almost every Tone Mob episode is remote. Because people live everywhere. Not everyone lives in Portland. But right. I did do a remote with Keeley and then an in-person with Keeley. Because he happened to be in town. And then I did a remote with Andy from PGS, just because it was more convenient at the time. And then he came over and we did it in person. And the vibes on both of those didn't really change. So I guess I kind of answered my own question. They felt exactly the same. Right.
Well, I will drop this last bit of knowledge here, last bit of information before we go here. So I'm really considering doing, and I've talked to you, Blake, about this, but I've never put this out publicly. I'm really considering starting a secondary podcasting channel. Mm-hmm. Totally different from Guitar Gear.
Good, because we don't talk about that anyway.
Right. So, we've talked. You and I have talked about like the different things that I feel that I can bring value to an audience, right? Because that's really what it's about. It's not necessarily about what I want to talk about with the hopes of someone else likes it too, right?
Right.
It's kind of about saying, I think I have some skill in this area, and I think I can help others do that. So I'll announce more in the future, but I guess I do wonder. Let's say it this way. Let's say that I do a podcast about financial economics in some way. So maybe that's starting a business as an artisan or a craftsman of some sort, and navigating those struggles. I wonder this audience, and I'd be totally fine with just an email like yes or no, or even a Facebook post like, Brian, that was a dumb idea. Mm-hmm. I wonder from our audience that there's pretty much like there's a few of the guys that you and I know that maybe have pedal companies or guitar companies that listen to this, but for the most part it's just it's a great group of people who just like listening and talking about gear rather than listening to the radio and some, Britney Spears song or whatever, my question is this: how many of those people would be interested in something like that?
Something, I mean, not that this is on topic ever, but something that is very purposely not guitar related, basically.
Right.
But
right.
possibly still helpful to certain people.
Right.
Business people or just I know we've brainstormed the amount of topics you could cover a lot. I don't know where you've landed because we haven't talked about it for a couple weeks. So, but I guess you'd probably have to. Maybe you've got a better idea of what you're actually gonna do now, and we can plug it next time or something. I don't know.
I'm still fleshing it out. So I'm still doing what I call prototype episodes.
Got it.
Because the truth is, it's easy to do 5 episodes about a subject. It's hard to do 200 episodes about a subject.
Yes.
Because there is always what in the world can I say different today and talk about? What subject can we talk about today that we have not talked about over and over and over and over?
Mm-hmm.
And so that gets difficult. And I think the only way to really find that out is to jump in with both feet in the deep end and see if you sink or swim.
Yeah, it's a good way to do it. That's what I've done. So I guess, yeah. I look forward to checking some of that out and hearing what the audience has to say about, or any suggestions or questions they might have that maybe they feel you could answer. So,
right. And I only say that because there are several Facebook groups of not only people in the gear industry who are trying to start their business, or trying to get their hobby to produce some sort of income, like a side income. But there's also people that, like a candle maker, someone that makes candles on Etsy, and they're just, having problems getting to that level where they're actually making some side income to help their family. And that's something like, aside from guitar gear, like that's something I'm very passionate about, is helping people in that situation, having been in that situation myself before. So just something that's been on my heart lately, and I wanted to put it out there publicly for everyone because I would love to hear others' thoughts on whether they might find that interesting enough to follow us over.
Well, there you go. That's actually probably a good way to wrap this episode up because we didn't stay on any topic for more than 20 seconds, it feels like. So might as well just close it with that. Email Brian.
All right.
Tell him what you think.
All right. Until next week.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to the Chasing Tone podcast. I really appreciate it. Hope you all enjoy it as well. We do these for you and for the fun of it, really, for the most part. As you can probably tell, 200 plus episodes in this. This is not just a Wampler podcast. This is a podcast about all different types of music and some not music related stuff. So hope you do enjoy that. Please, with any comments or questions, email podcast@wamplerpedals.com. Or feel free to shoot me a message on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, of course. Snapchat, not so much. Don't hang out on Snapchat too much anymore. But anyways, hope you like it. We'll talk to you next week with a new one.